If you've tried ADHD medication and felt worse instead of better, it might not be you. It might be the drug. After years of treating ADHD, I've noticed the same 5 medications show up over and over, and they almost never work the way people hope that they will. I watch patients come in frustrated, convinced that they were the problem, when really, the problem was the prescription. So today, I'm breaking down the 5 ADHD meds I almost never prescribe, and what I reach for instead. Because this isn't about theory or hype, it's about what actually helps people focus, function, and finally feel like themselves again. And who am I to question the ADHD meds that everyone else seems fine prescribing? My name is Dr. Salman Aziz-Mirza, triple board certified in adult psychiatry, child and adolescent psychiatry, and addiction medicine. And I'll be honest, the first on my least favorite list is actually one of my favorite antidepressants. Coming in at number 5 is Wellbutrin, one of my favorite antidepressants, but one of my least favorite ADHD meds. I know that sounds strange because Wellbutrin, or bupropion, is a great antidepressant. It's clean, energizing, and helps people climb out of that low motivation fog. For ADHD, it's what I call a side quest medication. It helps your mood, but misses the main target, executive function. During the pandemic, when telehealth exploded and many providers stopped prescribing stimulants due to DEA crackdowns on online pill mills, a lot of patients got switched to Wellbutrin as a quote-unquote safe alternative. On paper, it seemed perfect. Non-stimulant, low abuse risk, easy to prescribe. But in reality, most people got minimal benefit. I've heard it countless times. Doc, I feel less depressed, which is great, but my focus is still a disaster. That's the Wellbutrin paradox. It treats the wrong thing. It boosts dopamine and norepinephrine just enough to help motivation, but not enough to actually sharpen focus or organization. It's like drinking 2 sips of coffee and expecting to finish your taxes. It ain't happening. Now, Wellbutrin does have a place. If someone has both ADHD and depression, it can be a smart move. You're treating 2 issues at once without jumping straight to stimulants. But as a standalone ADHD treatment, it's usually a letdown. If you were prescribed Wellbutrin during that online ADHD wave and it didn't seem to help, you're not broken. The medication just wasn't built to do what you needed. Ask your doctor about non-stimulant options that target executive function directly, or a carefully titrated low-dose stimulant if it's safe for you. That one conversation can save you months of frustration. At number 4 is Strattera, the slow burn that burns for too long. If patients aren't prescribed Wellbutrin, they often end up here, the go-to non-stimulant that's supposed to feel quote-unquote safer. And on paper it looks great. Not addictive, once a day, long-term safety data. But what most people don't realize is that Strattera was originally developed as an antidepressant. That's where a lot of its problems start. Because when you take an antidepressant-like medication for ADHD, you get the same side effects. Nausea, fatigue, low libido, and sometimes mood swings or emotional flattening. I've even seen a few patients tip into mild mania after starting it. It's rare, but real. And then there's the waiting game. It takes 4 to 6 weeks, and sometimes even longer, to reach full effect. That's a long time to feel worse before maybe feeling better. One patient once told me, "Doc, I feel like my body's broken." And honestly, that's not far off from what many describe during those early weeks. Compared to stimulants, Strattera just doesn't hit as hard for focus. Patients who switch often tell me that they feel flat, like the volume on their attention got turned way down. That said, it's not useless. Some people do well once their body adjusts, especially those dealing with impulsivity or emotional dysregulation. But for most, the trade-off isn't worth it. If you're feeling worse on Strattera, don't just tough it out. Talk to your doctor about timing adjustments, adding a small bridge dose of a stimulant, or switching to something better tolerated. ADHD treatment should make life clearer, not duller. At number 3 is modafinil, the hype that rarely delivers. Every few weeks, someone walks to my office asking for the limitless drug. They've seen the movie, scrolled Reddit, or heard a podcast claim it's the secret to unstoppable productivity. But here's the truth. Modafinil isn't a focus enhancer. It's a wakefulness promoter. That difference is huge. Think of it like this. It's a great engine in a car that needs an alignment. You're awake, but you're still off track. I had a patient once convinced that modafinil would change his life. A month later, he told me, "Doc, I'm wide awake, but I'm just as scattered. I'm just awake while I'm scattered." That's modafinil in one sentence. It's a fantastic medication for narcolepsy, sleep apnea, or shift work fatigue, conditions where the main problem is sleepiness. But ADHD isn't about being tired. It's about executive dysfunction, focus, working memory, organization. And modafinil doesn't target those circuits effectively. During the pandemic, some online clinics started prescribing modafinil as a quote-unquote lighter stimulant alternative. It sounded appealing, but most people ended up frustrated. Lots of energy, very little direction. And sometimes they end up with new problems, irritability, headaches, or insomnia. So here's a takeaway. If a fatigue is your main issue, fix your sleep first. Sleep hygiene, circadian rhythm, maybe even getting a sleep study. Then treat your ADHD with something designed for attention, not alertness. Modafinil isn't the limitless pill. It's the stay awake pill. And being awake doesn't mean being focused. At number 2 is generic Concerta, the perfect ADHD medication that got broken by the system. When it works, brand name Concerta is one of my absolute favorites. It uses a delivery system called Oros, a tiny osmotic pump inside each tablet that releases medication gradually throughout the day. That's what gives it that smooth, consistent focus curve without the spikes or the crashes. But here's the problem. Most generic versions don't use the Oros system at all. They copy the main chemical, methylphenidate, but not the mechanism that makes it effective. It's like putting a Ferrari engine in a shopping cart. It technically moves, but not how it's supposed to. I've seen this happen countless times. Patients who were stable for years on brand name Concerta suddenly lose their focus. They crash midday, or they feel anxious and irritable, all because their pharmacy swapped them to a generic that doesn't deliver medication the same way. To make it worse, insurance companies often refuse to cover brand name Concerta without a medical necessity request. That paperwork can take weeks, and even when approved, the out-of-pocket cost can be hundreds and sometimes over $1,000 a month. So patients get stuck. Either pay a fortune or settle for a version that's inconsistent and unpredictable. And this isn't placebo. The difference is real and it's built into the pill. Most generics dump too much medication early, leaving you overstimulated in the morning and crashing by the afternoon. I call it the Concerta cliff. Great for a few hours and then nothing. And what's heartbreaking is that most people blame themselves. Did my tolerance change? Am I doing something wrong? No, the medication changed, not you. If this sounds familiar, ask your doctor to write Oros or brand name only, medically necessary. Sometimes that triggers a prior authorization that can get coverage. If not, discuss alternatives like Vyvanse or Adderall XR, which use more reliable release systems. ADHD treatment should create consistency, not chaos. And losing the Oros system turned one of our best tools into a game of pharmaceutical roulette. And at number 1 is 𝒘𝐿, the shiny new failure that proves newer isn't always better. When 𝒂𝒊𝒅𝒄 hit the market, it was hyped as a breakthrough, a modern, non-stimulant ADHD med that could boost focus without the crash. On paper, it sounded incredible. In reality, it's basically a pricier, less effective version of Strattera. Chemically, they're almost identical. Both target norepinephrine reuptake, but 𝒂𝒊𝒅𝒄 brings more side effects, higher costs, and almost no added benefit. And here's the kicker. 𝒂𝒊𝒅𝒄 isn't new at all. It started decades ago as an antidepressant called viloxazine, and it was pulled in Europe for, you guessed it, side effects and inconsistent results. Now, it's been repackaged, rebranded, and pushed as the next big thing. But in real life, the side effects are brutal. I've seen mood swings, irritability, even full-blown rage episodes that completely blindsided people. One college student told me that she went from calm to furious over dishes in the sink. Another young patient nearly got kicked out of kindergarten after a sudden spike in aggression. And the insomnia? Relentless. Patients who used to sleep fine suddenly wake up every few hours, wired but exhausted. And that's the irony. It's marketed as a non-stimulant, but it leaves people feeling both wired and tired at the same time. And then there's the price. Without solid insurance, 𝒂𝒊𝒅𝒄 can run $300 to $400 a month, or more. And for what? Something less effective than the older, cheaper alternatives. The only advantage is that 𝒂𝒊𝒅𝒄 capsules can be opened and mixed with food, useful for people who can't swallow pills. Beyond that, you're paying premium prices for recycled pharmacology. I've had patients switch from Strattera to 𝒂𝒊𝒅𝒄 hoping for fewer side effects, and come back asking to switch right back. So here's the bottom line. 𝒂𝒊𝒅𝒄 isn't innovation, it's iteration, with a marketing budget. If it's not working for you, don't blame yourself. It's not you, it's the medication. So there you have it, my top 5 worst ADHD medications based on real-world experience and results. And look, I know that some of you are taking one of these right now. If it's working for you, that's fantastic. Don't stop it just because it made my list. Medicine is personal, and what matters most is what works for you. But if you've been struggling, feeling foggy, flat, or frustrated, this might explain why. Because sometimes it's not you, it's the medication. These aren't bad drugs. They're just the wrong fit for a lot of people. And after years of treating ADHD, I've learned one truth that never changes. The right medication can completely change a life. Now here's the thing that often gets lost in all the marketing noise. Stimulants are still the first line, gold standard treatment for ADHD. They've been studied for decades, and when prescribed responsibly, they're incredibly effective at improving focus, motivation, and executive function. Non-stimulants, like the ones I talked about today, things like Wellbutrin, Strattera, 𝒂𝒊𝒅𝒄, they have their place, especially for people who can't tolerate stimulants. But they're not replacements. They're backup tools, not the main engine. That's why my next video dives into the opposite list, the top 5 ADHD medications that I actually love to prescribe. These are the ones that consistently help my patients focus, function, and finally feel like themselves again. If this video helped you, hit subscribe and check that one out next. It's where we get into all the good stuff. Until next time, be safe and be well.